In the quiet suburb of Frederick, Colorado, life seemed absolutely picture perfect for Chris and Shanann Watts. They were that young couple everyone envied, with two adorable little girls, Bella and Celeste, and a third child on the way. You know, the type like a scene straight out of a glossy neighborhood brochure. Their social media was a highlight reel filled with smiling photos, birthday parties, vacations, and cheerful home videos. Shanann often recorded herself with the girls, giggling and playing, while Chris stood in the background, beaming like the devoted husband he was supposed to be. But here's the twist. Beneath all that curated perfection, something dark was brewing. By August 2018, this facade would shatter, leading to one of the most chilling family murders in modern American crime. It's a haunting reminder that not everything is as it seems, right? When it was over, the man who once smiled for family portraits now stood over his wife's lifeless body, a chilling silence enveloping him as he began to plot what came next, a plan that would lead them into a realm of unimaginable horror. As Bella and Celeste stirred awake, their innocent voices calling for their mother, Chris coldly loaded Shannon's body into his truck. He then forced his daughters into the back seat, their small forms sitting next to their mother, driving them 40 miles to an oil field owned by his employer, Anadarko Petroleum. Along the way, the little girls, still alive and trusting their father, were blissfully unaware of the grim reality unfolding around them. Bella, sensing something was terribly wrong, whispered, "Daddy, what's wrong with Mommy?" Her voice trembled with confusion and fear, but Chris remained silent, his heart seemingly hardened, as he drove deeper into the dark field, leaving behind the warmth of family and stepping into a chilling void of despair. As the night unfolded, an argument erupted in their bedroom. Shanann confronted Chris about their crumbling marriage and his growing emotional distance. She sensed something was off, especially with his secret affair with Nickel Kessinger hanging over them like a dark cloud. Picture her, vulnerable and exhausted, carrying the weight of their unborn child. Chris, on the other hand, was consumed by a desperate desire to escape responsibility and start anew. In a moment of rage, he strangled her in their bed, the chilling silence of that act echoing through their suburban home while their daughters slept just a few feet away, completely unaware of the horror unfolding. It's a haunting reminder of how quickly love can turn into tragedy. When it was over, the man who once smiled for family portraits now stood over his wife's lifeless body, a chilling silence enveloping him as he began to plot what came next, a plan that would lead them into a realm of unimaginable horror. As Bella and Celeste stirred awake, their innocent voices calling for their mother, Chris coldly loaded Shannon's body into his truck. He then forced his daughters into the back seat, their small forms sitting next to their mother, driving them 40 miles to an oil field owned by his employer, Anadarko Petroleum. Along the way, the little girls, still alive and trusting their father, were blissfully unaware of the grim reality unfolding around them. Bella, sensing something was terribly wrong, whispered, "Daddy, what's wrong with Mommy?" Her voice trembled with confusion and fear, but Chris remained silent, his heart seemingly hardened, as he drove deeper into the dark field, leaving behind the warmth of family and stepping into a chilling void of despair. At the remote site, his brutality continued. He smothered Celeste first with a blanket, then Bella, who fought back, begging him not to hurt her, her final words haunting, "Daddy, no." He murdered them both with his own hands before disposing of their small bodies in separate oil tanks, lowering them into crude petroleum as if to erase them, while he buried Shanann and their unborn son in a shallow grave nearby. Then, as if he could still control the story, he drove home, showered, and went to work, pretending nothing had happened. But the facade cracked almost immediately. Shanann's friend Nicole Atkinson, alarmed when Shanann missed a doctor's appointment and wasn't answering her phone, alerted police. Within hours, officers arrived at the Watts home. Body cam footage later showed Chris calm, cooperative on the surface, answering questions, but every movement carried tension, a nervous performance unraveling as neighbors and police grew suspicious. He claimed Shanann had taken the kids and left, but there was no evidence of bags packed, no trace of departure. Instead, investigators noticed how jumpy he became when a neighbor showed surveillance footage of Chris backing his truck into the driveway early that morning, loading something large and heavy into the bed. Days later, as media swarmed, Chris gave interviews, standing on his porch pleading for his family's safe return, his voice flat, his eyes dead. "Shanann, if you're out there, come back. If someone has them, bring them back." But the mask of the grieving husband couldn't hold. Investigators pressed harder, bringing him in for questioning, and under a polygraph test, Chris broke, his story unraveling piece by piece until he admitted what he had done. First, trying to blame Shanann for killing the girls before he killed her, then finally confessing the truth that he alone had destroyed his family. The details stunned the public not only because of the sheer brutality, but because of how ordinary the Watts family had appeared, how easily Chris had played the part of a loving husband and father while secretly planning their annihilation. In court, he showed little emotion as the charges were read. 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 for Shanann, 1 for Nika, and 1 each for Bella and Celeste, plus unlawful termination of a pregnancy. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Chris pled guilty to avoid the death penalty, sentenced instead to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At his sentencing, Shanann's family wept as prosecutors described the final moments of Bella and Celeste, the way Bella fought to breathe, the fear etched into her last words. The courtroom felt the weight of what had been taken, the calculated cruelty that had turned a suburban home into a crime scene. Chris sat silent, his head bowed, but the horror of his actions filled the room. Today, the case endures as one of the most disturbing examples of family annihilation in American crime, not because it is unsolved, every detail has been laid bare, but because it forces an unbearable question. How could a father murder the very children who loved him? How could a man who once built a family decide to erase it for nothing more than lust, selfishness, and the illusion of freedom? The Watts murders are remembered not only for their brutality, but for the banality of evil, for the chilling reminder that sometimes the monster is not outside the home, but inside it, smiling for the camera, living next door, blending in until the mask slips and everything is gone.